Okay. Sorry
We're
about
doing
that. If you heard the mumbling. Hi everyone. We got it working. My name is Brian Francis. I'm the anonymous voice in the darkness, and I'm also your pilot today. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra, and I'm joined here today in the bottom left-hand corner by three wonderful faces. The first face is Chris Graft. Chris, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I am Chris, First Face Graft, editor-in-chief of Gamasutra.
And Frank, could you introduce yourself?
I am Frank Cifaldi, formerly of Gamasutra years ago, currently of the Video Game History Foundation.
And most importantly, Ron, could you introduce yourself and say hi to everyone?
I am Ron Gilbert, and I made this game.
Yay! And the game is today Thimbleweed Park. It is a point-and-click adventure game. It was successfully backed on Kickstarter, and now it's out. It's here for the world to see and to play and to mess with the toilet option settings. As you can see right now, where we were.
Wrong, right, wrong, right, wrong.
Easy, hard, easy, hard.
Easy, hard, easy, hard.
Easy, hard mode, easy mode. Yeah. I really should have made this the casual mode, hard mode selector is what way you did the toilet paper.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be... I just want everyone to know that about 10 minutes before we came on today, Ron was just constantly saying, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have done this. So if you
we're
want
a
to
bunch of amateurs, we don't know what we're doing.
But see, that's the way I am. Like in any game that I finish, I spend the next 3 months going, "Oh crap! I wish I would have done that." Mm-hmm. Right?
That's just good because I know a lot of people who are the opposite. This is perfect and great.
That's me.
No, I'm like my worst critic.
It's good to be that way.
It's why I don't like to play my games right after they come out because I know I do that. But with all this like streaming mojo, it's like I really feel like I have to now. So
yeah, I don't even like watching a replay of a live stream that I was on, looking at my face and hearing my voice.
Yeah. Oh, that I cannot do. I cannot look at pictures of myself or videos of myself.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You got both of those. So, like for the people who are, let's not assume that everyone on the stream is watching knows the background of this game. Can you kind of give a little bit of the background, how it got started, and why you bothered?
Yeah, it was a Kickstarter that we did a couple of years ago, and it really all started because Gary Winnick and I did Maniac Mansion together, back in 1987, back at Lucasfilm, and we were just chatting one day about the old Lucasfilm games. Oh, there it is, Maniac Mansion, right? About a lot of the old Lucasfilm games, they had this charm to them, and while I like a lot of modern adventure games, they don't seem to have that same charm that those old Lucasfilm games had. And frankly, we didn't really know what it was. And we just kind of decided, hey, why don't we just build one of those games again? It's just kind of like the old games and see if we can figure out, what that charm of those games were. So that's when we did the Kickstarter.
Where did you end up zeroing? What was the charm then?
I don't know that I really know. I'm not sure that I really know what it was. I think we were successful in doing that, or at least a lot of people, enjoy the game in the same way. I think some of it is just how we do production. It's like I often call it like improv game design. We just think of weird stuff and we throw it in the game, and if we laugh about something over lunch, it goes in the game that afternoon, and so it's this weird improv game design. I think a little bit of that is the charm is that, and I think you get that from having a very small team of people that work on stuff.
So Ron, if you don't mind me jumping in here, Chris,
please do.
I talked to you a few years ago about how Monkey Island was made, and what I found really interesting that I didn't know was that you kind of had people assigned to rooms in the game to do all the scripting for the rooms, which kind of lended this almost like unique director feel to different parts of the games because different people would script the entire room, which I think goes toward what you're saying about sort of improv game design. And I'm wondering, was the scripting done similarly in Thimbleweed?
Yeah, it was. There were, 3 programmers that really worked on the scripting part. There was me and David Fox and Jen, and each of them had rooms that were assigned to them. David probably did the bulk of the rooms, and then Jen probably did the next largest group, and then me.
Yeah, I
So
really like that because you can kind of like you can kind of start seeing personality that continuity of personality, I should say, between rooms, which is I don't know, for someone like me who thinks too much about how stuff is made was really fun.
We have somebody in chat says, hello from Barcelona. Hi, Ron and Gamasutra. I'm the girl who posted his mom playing Thimbleweed Park on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I
In my
remember that.
house, we admire your work.
Yeah, I
Especially
remember
me.
that.
Yeah, well, that's nice.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in and just remind folks, if you have any questions for Ron, especially about game design or game art or anything that Ron, you have anything that you want related to Ron, just be sure to ask it and we will throw it at him for you. Ron, before we continue, I just wanted to point out that one of the reasons I'm thankful Frank is here is that I didn't actually play the LucasArts adventure games. I played the educational games that you did, including Putt Putt and Pajama Sam. What do you feel was like? I mean, it's but those games had kind of charm and personality too. I know you just said you have no idea what the charm was in your old games, but I'm kind of curious what you think really separated those two kinds of games that you worked on back in the 90s.
Oh, cutscene.
Cutscene's very important.
Pay attention to the cutscene. There's a lot of useful information here if you know what to look for.
It's gone.
In that particular one?
I'm looking back at the. He's just staring at the camera. I'm actually looking back at the screen over here, at the delay, just to keep an eye on it. Now that you've said that.
Wait, straight up. We'll get back to your question, but straight up, was that part of a cut puzzle involving the Betamax tape?
No, it wasn't. It
Okay.
wasn't. I mean, all of those little video flashback scenes, they have a real purpose in the story.
Okay, cool.
You know, there are no clues in them, but they really help kind of inform the story and what's going on.
So the question, what was it again? The charm of the
what was? How do you separate the charm from the old adventure LucasArts games from the educational games you did?
I think they were similar in a lot of ways. I mean, I came right off of doing Monkey Island 2, to doing, Putt Putt and Freddy Fish and, Pajama Sam and all those games. And I think they share a lot of the same aspects. They weren't as much kind of improv designed. It's like we spent a little more time getting the designs locked down for those games. But I do think they kind of share that same kind of whimsy, and fun that the LucasArts stuff had.
It's funny. I'm not very far into the game. I just got to a part where I like how it's really self-aware. I think that's where a lot of the humor, the self-aware of that it's a video game and that it was made by game developers. For example, the part about save design, when you're just going back and forth, is how does something like that end up getting put in the game, and just made into a part of the dialogue? Is that kind of part of the improv design type stuff?
That particular line, that was, I wrote that particular dialogue, and it just seemed funny to me at the moment, that you were sitting there talking to these giant pigeons, on this dark highway, and I was just thinking about, well, what weird things could they talk about? And that just kind of popped into my head because I thought, I bet players are saying, wow, this is kind of weird. And then, we should probably save our game, right? I was thinking maybe that's what the player's thinking at that moment. And then, and so I just wrote that line of dialogue that shows up there. And I love fourth walling. I mean, I kind of like that as just a way to do humor. So I think that's why you see a lot of it in this game.
Yeah, I actually kind of assumed that because I think I might have said this on Twitter. What something I really liked about playing this game was that, I'm a big fan of the original 2 Monkey Island games. Those were really influential on me, or at least as influential as something can be on someone who's never made a story-driven anything. But I always felt like Day of the Tentacle showed us a Monkey Island without you, and this game kind of shows us a Monkey Island without Tim and Dave. And I always kind of assumed the fourth wall stuff was your humor, so it was kind of redeeming to see so much of the fourth wall stuff here and be like, I knew it. That's Ron. That's Ron's humor.
Yeah, it's really natural too. Like I know that there's all kinds of ways to approach humor in games, but it seems natural for you. How would you describe? I mean, it's like you're not really trying, and I think that some games maybe try too hard to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's what kind of mindset are you in when you're designing and writing for humor?
I mean, I don't know that I'm in a particular mindset, right? I know that like when I'm writing jokes, for dialogues, I spend a lot of time rewriting them, right? The jokes that you see on the screen when you're playing the game are usually not the first thing I wrote, right? It's like I usually write something and then I'll just ask myself, well, how can this be funnier? Right. And that's a very conscious thing. It's like, well, how can this be funnier? And then I might just change a word or two. Oh, this is a funnier word. It's like sardine. Oh, that's a much funnier word than fish. Right. So you just change fish to sardine. And then you just keep iterating on the line. Well, how can this be funnier? How can this be funnier? And I ask myself that 3 or 4 times, and then you have maybe a funnier line or a funnier dialogue, and so that's kind of my approach to that.
I like all these real quick, just as the subject of things that are funny. I like all these book titles. Walk to Are You My Mummy by Dr. Zeus. You're really gonna read all these titles. I just got more.
These were all done. Titles were done by people that read the blog that we do, the development blog about the game. Mm-hmm. About a year and a half ago, I just said, hey, we've got this library and we need books for the library, so come up with some fun titles for me, and we had over 6,000 entries.
Wow.
For that. So if you push the ladder.
Oh, push the ladder. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead and push the ladder, and then climb up the ladder, and then just keep climbing up the ladder, and you'll kind of see. It's like we had to extend the height of this bookstore because we had so many book titles in the game.
Let's do some that are at the top.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is like a clown car of books.
There's a payoff at the top.
There's like 6,000 of these things. Oh, you're playing in casual mode, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Owned.
How you? Yes, We Cannibal by Barack Obama. Shout out to anyone in the chat who put a book on the library. Is there anything else you want me to do up here, or?
Big Boss SNK says I contributed a book for the library. Do you remember what it was, Big Boss? Yeah,
that's important. So Ron, was it sort of difficult to walk away from the dialogue because? I would imagine in your earlier games that didn't have voiceover, that you could just kind of improvise until like literally gold. But in this game, you probably had to stop at some point, and I would imagine it probably drove you crazy later when you'd see a line and go, "Oh, I can make that so much better now."
Well, we recorded very late in the process.
Okay,
we did the recording for this at the beginning of December, which was very, very late, and that was almost kind of a mistake. We were supposed to do the recording in October, but things just got kind of messed up with the casting and everything. So we actually slipped till December, which was very late. So there wasn't a lot that we really wanted to change by then. Most of the changes came earlier, but it is. I mean, it is one difference between working on this stuff versus the stuff that doesn't have voice, is you literally can't change dialogue. I mean, there were some things we found in the very late stages of testing where we went, oh, you know what, this would be a lot clearer if the character said this. But we couldn't do that anymore, so we had to, there are a couple of places where we found lines that were similar enough, but then conveyed the information and just substituted the lines in. So you do have to do a little bit of that kind of juggling when you have the dialogue recording. And then translations as well. We have 4 different translations for the game. And, if we would change a line of dialogue, then it has to be sent to 4 different translators, to be translated. So you do need to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, one of the things that the pigeons told me near the beginning And
One of
this is going to be my point of reference for
He did it.
Thimbleweed
He
in
hit
this
the
live
post-apocalyptic
stream.
hobo status.
Yeah, like so. But they had interesting stuff to say about game design, so adventure game design. So I'm going to keep on coming back to them. No, it was about the saving again, and they kept on going about how there's not necessarily a death state. It just takes, but in order to do that, it takes more planning design wise. Can you kind of explain what the pigeons meant?
I think that if I do a talk at GDC next year about the game design at Thimbleweed Park, I'm going to dress like a giant pigeon.
Yes.
Oh,
Because
please do.
clearly the pigeons understand game design.
Yeah, I trust them.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have death, it does take a lot more planning, because you can't just end the game when something happens, right? So you have to really make sure that, if the player's going to be in this particular situation, that we have all of the items that they need at that point. So you just have to do a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's not just about not having you die in the game. It's just making sure that no matter where you are in the game, you always have the things that you need to finish the game, and that takes a lot more work. That pigeon dialogue about game design, it used to go 3 levels deeper than it does right now. They used to have 3 more things that they would say, but I just found it was kind of like you've run the joke into the ground at that point. As we watched play testers, it was kind of like there was a really good smile on their face for like the first 3, and then you could see the smile start to go away. So I just kind of cut the last 3.
Dang, I like it when people. Maybe that's why I do it myself. I just drive a joke into the ground until people are just miserable. So I was hoping for more lines of dialogue from the pigeons. I don't know. Maybe that can be some DLC or something.
Well, the pigeons. They show up later as a puzzle.
The pigeon game design DLC.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there is a dig later in the game on Sierra Online again, which I actually found kind of funny in the sense that it's like, are you still angry? It's been like 30 years, Ron.
Yeah, no, I talk about this every week with my therapist. So.
By the time you played Space Quest or whatever.
Yeah, it's this traumatic. I mean, they're trigger phrases for me. So, no, I don't think I'm not angry. It's just fun. I think we made so much fun of Sierra back at Lucasfilm. I just felt that there was no way that we could do this game without at least one kind of anti Sierra jokes.
So Brian, what are you doing here? I saw you just called this woman.
Let's just call her. Oh, she became a video game developer. Oh my god. I just found a flashback.
Oh, we're entering flashback. Yeah.
Oh.
Dolores, who I think they've been talking about in the chat. She only ever wanted a thing to become a good game designer for that awful mucus phlegm.
Ah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm reading the jokes.
That's what we used to call Lucasfilm back at Lucasfilm. That was our joke. We used to call it mucus phlegm back then.
Mucus phlegm? Frank, did you know this?
No, I can't say that I knew that.
Yeah, it was our little kind of in joke. So.
Well, you also, I mean, you called it scum and
yeah, and I think that's where the mucus phlegm came from. And I think it always happened when we'd get some ridiculous, edict from above about, how we couldn't have the window shades at different heights or something. We just kind of roll our eyes and go, "Oh, it's great working at mucus phlegm."
Wait, tell us about that. You couldn't have the window. What now?
Oh, when we first moved to Skywalker Ranch. There was this, these lovely, kind of farmhouse type buildings, and they had these little window shades, and people would put them up and down. And then I remember we got this memo from the head person that said that if you're going to do your window shades, make sure they're at the same level, because it's aesthetically unpleasing to have the window shades at different levels.
Oh, you poor things! You were you were in this beautiful
These
ranch.
are the
with-
conditions we had to work on.
Was it George? Was it George who sent you the memo?
No, I think it was his assistant that sent out
Signed
the.
George.
Did you guys get Max Headroom in here and the old Revenge of the Jedi poster?
Yeah.
Are you gonna get? Oh, are you gonna get sued for that one?
Fair use.
Who even owns the Max Headroom IP anymore?
Apparently,
Probably.
I was more thinking
Bring
of the
it.
Revenge of the Jedi one, but okay. What's going on in the
Whoever
chat?
owns-
Everyone, yeah. Alba X Promise wants to cosplay Dolores and the dance she does, which I don't know if I can get her to do right now, but I've seen her do it from the GIF you put on Twitter.
Yeah, you can get her to do it if you just solve the flashback. She does it at the end of the flashback.
Oh, gotcha.
Bring up.
We actually have an actual question here from Taco Task Force. I like that name and I like tacos. Says, I'm curious if there was anything cut from the game that Ron felt was a really good decision to cut.
Wait, what?
There were several things. When you're walking around town, you see a bunch of boarded up buildings. Some of those were actual buildings you went into in the very early kind of wireframe stage of the game, and we just cut them because there wasn't anything interesting going on in them, and the one puzzle you had to solve in there, we could just move somewhere else. So there were probably 5 or 6 locations that were cut from the game.
So, David Fox is in chat.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
He's saying, and the big uproar that eliminated the mayonnaise from lunch when they served steamed artichokes. Everyone was really pissed about that.
What?
Do you have any more context for that, Ron?
Yeah, I think that was like in the lunchroom at the main house. They decided that they weren't going to serve mayonnaise with the artichokes because it's fattening and it's not good for you and stuff like that.
I can't believe you guys had to work under these horrible.
I know,
conditions.
it's horrible. It's
With like
crunch.
infinite budget and time to make adventure games.
but we couldn't have mayonnaise in our artichokes.
And the window shades.
The horror. The horror.
No wonder you called it mucus phlegm.
David Fox says, lunch police.
Was there anything? I'm gonna try and ask a genuine question. Was there anything working at Lucasfilm that was like sincerely disappointing? Like kind of like you go to work for Walt Disney and you find out like you're working on like one of his super weird old racist ideas or something. Sorry, I had to reach there, but like anything, I don't know. Like people think of that as a golden age of game design, and I'm sure it was perfectly mundane to a lot of people in some ways.
I mean, maybe David can chime in, but I don't really remember anything that was particularly horrible. I mean, there weren't stupid things like we couldn't have mayonnaise on our artichokes, and they didn't serve pizza at Skywalker Ranch, right? I mean, it's just a bunch of stupid crap like that. But I think generally it was a wonderful environment to work in because we had so much freedom to kind of do whatever we wanted to do, which is why I think you see a lot of the games that you do that really came out of there. I mean, certainly as time went on and the games group became more successful, it became a little more marketing focused. And I think after I left, there was a lot of stuff that happened that people didn't really like because I think management was paying more attention to the games that were being made and kind of going, well, is this really marketable or is this not marketable? But certainly when David and I were there, I mean it was kind of like the insane people running the asylum. I mean we just kind of got to do whatever we wanted to do.
Do you feel like the production like of the games that you did at LucasArts, like during your best times there, how did that compare to making Thimbleweed?
It was very similar. It was very, very similar. It's like working with David again and Gary again and Mark Ferrari and people like that. It really had that same feel, right? And it was back to the inmates running the asylum again, right? I mean, we just kind of got to do what we wanted to do to make the game. So I think the feeling was very, very similar. But we could have mayonnaise on our artichoke.
Can of non-trademark infringing poopsie.
Ooh, poopsie, yeah.
Oh, actually,
I hear poopsie's in a lot of hot water these days for making ads.
That's a different cola, Bryant. This is poopsie.
Yeah, not Pepsi.
I believe if you pick up the ketchup, you'll see that Sierra Online joke.
Carefully handling broken glass. If this were a Sierra Online
There it is.
Oh my gosh. It's total burn. Take that, Sierra Online. Oh my gosh.
I like how much of this is us just laughing.
It's true though. Yeah. Hope everyone likes just watching us watch Bryant play, and we're just cracking up with these.
Ron, do you think the new young audience you're trying to attract with this game will understand what the hell you're talking about with that joke?
Probably not.
I do not.
But I don't know that it matters if they do. I mean, if they kind of go, well, I don't really understand that. It's like it's not like you have to understand that joke to solve the game.
Totally, yeah.
So it kind of exists on this level. Like we brought in some play testers who never really played point and click adventures before. Right? They had never played the Lucasfilm stuff. They'd never played the Sierra stuff. Just never played this kind of stuff. And we kind of watched them because we wanted to see, well, how do they handle the game, and how do they treat the puzzles and stuff. And during the debrief after the playtest, one of the women said, she said, I felt like there were a lot of jokes I was supposed to get, but that I didn't have the background. And I kind of asked her, I said, well, do you think that's a problem? And she said, oh, not at all, because now I'm really intrigued to go find out what those jokes were.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like to go back and go, okay, well, what is the whole Sierra Online thing, right? And maybe she'll go Google that, and some of it will come up. So I don't know that it's really a problem.
Yeah. So David Fox is taking. I think he took credit for the poopsie line.
I think the Sierra. I think he took credit for the Sierra Online.
The Sierra line.
Oh, the Sierra Online.
Because the
Poopsie was mine.
So we talk a little bit about the art style, because it's just watching Bryant play it, and it's just beautiful, and it's just kind of a place where you want to hang out, which a lot of video games don't do that for me anymore. Talk about how you got there.
Well, when we started the Kickstarter, it really was kind of the game was really kind of rooted more in Maniac Mansion, in terms of its roots for that stuff. And Gary had done all the art for Maniac Mansion. So we started out with art that was very, very Maniac Mansion-ish, right? And we had asked, the initial money we'd asked for on the Kickstarter, we wanted to make sure that if we got that money, we could completely finish the game. Right? We didn't want to get in a situation where the game was going to cost twice as much as we asked for. We wanted to make sure that. So we kept the art quite simple. And then when we got a little over twice as much money than we had asked for, it really kind of gave us the ability to go, okay, well, what could we do with this art, right? And that's where we got in contact with Mark Ferrari, and then he went through and kind of did his magic to stuff. Because I mean, the thing about Mark is he's probably the best pixel artist that I know, right? And his stuff is just absolutely amazing. And I think it's because Mark has this sense of light that most artists just do not have. And you look at his rooms and everything is lit just perfectly. And I remember being on Skype calls with Mark, long Skype calls with Mark, just talking about where the moon was in the shot, because he wanted to make sure that the moon lighting was all correct. And he wanted to make sure that when we were in the Quickie Pal room and we went to this other room, it looked like we were actually flipping 90 degrees between the two rooms, and he wanted to make sure the moon was in exactly the right place for all the camera flips. And it's frustrating, when you're trying to do stuff and an artist is just obsessed with where the moon is or where the sun is and stuff. But it's actually really good, right? Because it really showed he cared a lot about the lighting for these rooms and where the lighting was coming from. And I think you can really see it, in a lot of the rooms that he's done.
Yeah, I want to give you a quick plug for you, Chris, which is that Mark did an amazing GDC talk about his pixel art process for this game. that's on the GDC vault somewheres.
And is that the 8-bit-ish talk?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's on YouTube now too, so you can check the GDC YouTube for that.
Yeah, that's
once a UBM employee, always a UBM employee.
just helping people. They can search YouTube 8-bit-ish if they want to see that talk, and they'll probably find it 8-bit-ish GDC. All right, how the
Yeah,
heck?
I think at one point, I don't think that was a talk that you had to. I think that was a free talk. I think it still is actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm now
So
trying
what,
to.
so what are you up to, Ryan?
I'm annoyed because I'm trying to solve a printer. I'm trying to fix my printer in the game, and I'm putting off doing that in real life. I'm really, damn it! This is my video game challenge. I have to fix a printer. I kind of like. Okay, I'm going to make this observation as someone who didn't like. I grew up with a very different tradition of these kind of games, where I really admire how it sort of feels like you can.
It's a red jacket.
like sort of fumble your way through everything. What I enjoy is like, okay, like I know I kind of have this vague clue and I go in this direction, and there's this kind of like sense of like design pressure that I feel as I like go and I pick up objects, and then other spaces where characters bounce me off and tell me no, go over here. And I so far haven't felt super confused about anything except the cow that just moved and these doors. Like the game responds when I'm like, oh, I have to go do this now. It feels like it's strange. It feels, when I say it feels like a roller coaster, it's like the strange compliment, because like usually people use that to say, oh, something's happening.
Yelling.
Usually that means like, oh, the game puts you on rails and doesn't like let you do anything, but it's more like I move forward and the game makes sure that something is happening in order for me to feel like I'm doing things. So I'm really impressed. Like that's what's impressing me the most about this game.
Yeah, I think that's the key to good adventure game design, right? Is to not, not lead people around, but kind of, tell them where they need to be going and let them explore other areas, but always kind of just very subtly bump them, back to the path they should be. If they don't want to be there, they just push against it and they move where they want to go. Mm-hmm. But just kind of being clear about, hey, you were starting to do this. This is the thing you need to do. And hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Just to help players understand what they should do without forcing them to do it.
So was the notebook mechanic in this game sort of a eureka moment at some point, or did you have that in mind from the beginning? Because that really keeps you on track.
Yeah, that was not something that we had in the original design. That was something that came a little bit later, and it came from the agents having notebooks, which you would expect, federal agents to have, and so they had a notebook. And you can kind of see there are at the very early stages. There are a couple of things, with the Tron machines, and then we just kind of realized, oh, this is actually working kind of well. We should just expand this. And so, at first, I really didn't want to. I kind of thought, oh man, these notebooks, it feels like it's too much of a crutch. It feels too much like a bad casual play mobile game, to have the notebooks in there. And so I kind of internally resisted it for a little while, but once they got implemented, I just realized, oh, these are actually really nice, because they don't tell you how to do anything, right? They just tell you what you should be doing. And they really are, when you were playing Monkey Island, back when you were, 10 or 11 years old, you were writing all this stuff down anyway, right? It's like all we're really doing is just saving you from having to write this stuff down yourself with the notebook. So I think the notebooks ended up being a really good idea.
I think more than saving the notes, what it seems like it might save is that classic adventure game thing where if a puzzle hasn't been solved yet, then someone has to remind you of it in dialogue if you go re-talk to them.
Right.
So I don't know. Was it kind of freeing to not have to worry about that?
Well, we still do that. The characters still do some stuff about reminding, but I don't think people really need it anymore. Because you aren't going back to this person going, oh, what was I supposed to do? Let me go back and talk to Leonard again. What was that thing that he wanted? Because it's all in your notebook now, so you just don't do it.
Yeah, it always kind of reminded me of old comic books where they would very forcefully shoehorn in like the plot that's happening right now. So this is probably a pretty difficult question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is that playing this game, I felt a certain, like, maybe the word is stride, that I hadn't felt in an adventure game and since like Monkey Island 2, I think. Like there seems to be a specific, I don't know if it's language or speed or what, that feels like an adventure game that Ron Gilbert worked on. And I don't know, do you have any insight into what that might be? Because it's just the sort of speed that I'm able to move around, the way the puzzles come at me just feels very Ron Gilbert to me.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a particular comment about that. I think it's just, it's a part of doing a good adventure, right? I mean, players should always know what they need to be doing, right? I think that helps with that pacing, that helps, kind of move things forward in a way. So, yeah, I don't know how to directly respond to that.
It's kind of like...
Except thank you, I guess.
It's very Ron Gilbertish about it. Yeah, like just watching Bryant's play and the commentary he had about just exploring the mansion, it seems like it leaves a lot of the pacing to the player. They're able to bounce around to different places, and I noticed like a lot of opportunity. There's so much opportunity to surprise the player, whether it's through dialogue or just earlier is walking by the room and see like someone's pounding on the door, and then you go in. And I think just like, do you keep that in mind, like designing to surprise the player?
Oh yeah, you definitely keep that in mind. You want them to be intrigued by everything. So it's not really that we want to surprise you; we want to intrigue you. It's like you go knock on the door and you hear the voices yelling at each other behind the door. Ooh, that's intriguing. You want to go see what's going on there. And when you see characters like, Dolores is, running into her father right now, it's like, whoa, that's kind of intriguing. Well, what does he have to say, about this? So, it's just, keeping the player really engaged with stuff. I've become addicted to watching streamers play this game, because it's so fascinating, because I've never had the opportunity like I do today to be able to just watch people play the game and not know that somebody's watching them, that made the game, right? And it's fascinating, and I love to do that. But I've seen several streams where people are ready to sign off and they're like, okay, we'll just solve this one last puzzle, and then they solve that puzzle and they're like, okay, well, just this one last puzzle and then we're going to go, and then they'll one more puzzle before they go. And I think that's kind of the perfect moment, right? You just have to do that one little more step over and over again. It kind of tells you've hooked people in the right way in the game that you're doing.
Ron, I have a question, because yesterday there was the news that Atlas America was dealing with the launch of Persona 5, and it seemed like with a request from their Japan headquarters, they were way less comfortable with people streaming like their story game. And while they have more combat than you do, they have a different art style than you do, they're still like a single player kind of once and you've seen most of it kind of game, and they're very reluctant. Obviously there's a culture difference, but they're very reluctant to deal with that. But does this still and yet you sound pretty excited about watching, like the idea that people could just watch other people play your game.
Yeah, I have no problem with people streaming the game at all, and I think it is something that we did talk about early on in the development. Is people are going to stream this thing, and it is a linear narrative game, like so many. Are there things we need to do in the game that will kind of make this stream friendly, right? And I think what you have when you're doing streams is, what you want to do is you want the streamer to do something in the game, and then the people watching the stream going, oh no, I think he should have done this. I think they should have done this. I think she should have picked up this. And when they start to ask themselves those questions, that kind of makes them want to go out and buy the game, right? Because they want to do all the things the streamer didn't do in the game. Where if you have a very simple narrative game where there aren't a lot of really, I mean, they don't have to be big narrative choices, but just little things like, oh, I would have tried this, or I would have looked at that object and I would have done this. If you have enough of that stuff, it makes people watching the stream treat it less like they're just watching a TV show, but they actually want to go get the game and explore it. So I think it's kind of a depth issue, right? If your kind of linear narrative game has enough depth to it, then streaming really just becomes an advertisement in a way for the game.
Yeah, everyone's going to play this game differently. Somebody in chat described it as, 4M0N80, catchy name, said all Ron Gilbert adventures are kind of an open world point and click. Is that kind of, do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I've always thought of adventure games as being open worlds in a way. I mean, all the way back to Maniac Mansion. Gary and David and I really thought about that house almost as a character in the game. That you go through and you explore the house and you go to different places, and it doesn't really direct you anywhere. It kind of restricts you a little bit, and you kind of open it up a little. Mm-hmm. And Monkey Island is very much that way, and the kids games they did at Humongous are that way, although they're a little more restrictive just because kids need a little more focus on stuff, and so we had to restrict you a little bit more in those games. But yeah, I mean, once you've opened up the areas, you can just kind of walk all over and just play and have fun, and hopefully it seems like a real world. It seems like a world that has a sense of place to it. You really feel like you're there.
App Dude 20. First off, everyone loved the dance. We got to the dance part, and just there's about 5 lines of everyone cheering the dance and cheering Dolores on. Before I bring App Dude's question in, I will say, I think something about Dolores has really caught on with people. Just reading this chat. Something about like her pluckiness and what she wants is like really like it's that's like part of the charm I think that you've hit on here with this game, is that something about even just her dancing gets everyone wanting to just cosplay her, even though her outfit isn't exactly it's not like a giant fantasy iconic thing.
Yeah, I think you try to make your character something that people can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not everybody's going to relate to Dolores. Maybe they'll relate to. Well, I mean, I hope they're not relating to Ransom the Clown. But, it's like there's always somebody you can relate to, and that's kind of a goal. Of doing any kind of fiction that you're writing.
Mm-hmm. Ron, are you cosplaying as Dolores right now?
Right now, yes.
You have the same color glasses.
AppDude27 would like to know, what advice would you give
to worn my purple shirt.
To independent game developers that admire point-and-click adventures that want to keep making games in the genre? Like, what advice would you give? And I'll keep laughing at the stuff on screen.
Well, I think with adventure games and more of the point-and-click stuff, we don't do a lot of it in this game because we really wanted the game to kind of harken back to those Lucasfilm games, but I think there's a lot of innovation that could happen, right? Where you're kind of keeping that same kind of point and click mentality, but you're just doing a lot more with narrative and a lot more with puzzles and a lot more of stuff. And I think if you want to do a point and click game, I think for your first game, I think it's fine to say, oh, I want to go make a little Sierra game, or I want to make a little Lucasfilm game, and kind of copy that. And I think that's okay. But as you explore, kind of get out of just trying to, pay homage to those games. You really just push the medium as much as you can, but keep it a point and click game. But really look at things like puzzles and narrative and characters, because I think there can be a lot more innovation happening.
Is there anything in mind, innovation-wise, that you're thinking, maybe you could try that out for your next game?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've been thinking about is just really taking the whole idea of the branching narrative, right, to just some extreme limit, to where the narrative becomes like this spider web of possibilities. Like, you almost can't play the game twice and see the same story, because every little thing that you do kind of moves the narrative in a different direction. That's kind of the thing that interests me right now. I don't know that I actually do that as a game, but I find that particularly fascinating.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, which is probably why I won't do it.
One moment I had that was very inspiring along those lines was playing the demo of what was it called? Indigo Prophecy, David Cage's game.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that the name of it? Yeah. So in the demo, it's the beginning of the game, and you wake up in a bathroom, and someone has been murdered, and it seems like maybe you did it, but you don't know. and you sort of cover up the crime scene and leave, and then you play as the police in the bathroom looking at the clues that you may or may not have left behind. And I always thought there should be more to it, and I thought the game would be that, but it wasn't. But that's a whole different conversation. But I definitely think there's something to that. The sort of weird branching narrative where characters can affect each other in ways that don't play out the same every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because I think reality is like that in a way. It's like every little decision that we make has these kind of butterfly effect, throughout the course of the rest of our lives. Even as small as, do I go to the store now or do I go to the store later, right? If you chose to go to the store now, maybe you would have been hit by a car. Where if you chose to go to the store later, you wouldn't have been hit by a car, right? It's just little things like that don't seem to have consequences that actually do have consequences, and so that's the kind of stuff I would really want to play with in this game.
So Ron, I remember when we talked about Scum years ago, you said that your vision for it at the time, Scum being the scripting language that was used in the LucasArts point and click adventures, that your goal was.
It's important to clarify what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It is Scum recently.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Scum. You said that your goal at the time was to create a scripting language that non-programmers could use, but that you didn't really felt like it ever got to that place. And I'm wondering if that's a priority with your new scripting language now, or if you've sort of given up on that idea.
I think I've kind of given up on that idea. I don't know. I don't know that you can do that without a whole lot of work. There are things like Twine and stuff which kind of allow you to do a lot of, a branching narrative and stuff. And, people have grafted Twine, into their graphic adventures, or I think even Firewatch, use Twine to do all their narrative kind of stuff. And you certainly don't need a big programming background to use that kind of stuff. But I think for the stuff that we're doing, I think you do need to be a programmer. You don't have to be a particular hardcore programmer or anything like that, but I think you still need to be a programmer.
Yeah, because it's more than just the dialogue. It's like
it is.
Moving the puppets around and stuff.
Yeah, certainly like the dialogue puzzles, like the one we're in right now with the sheriff, right? You don't need to know how to program to write that dialogue, right?
Yeah.
That's just a simple little text-based file format. And Lauren, who did a lot of the writing on this with me, she's not really a programmer, but she had no problem writing the dialogues. It's just kind of the whole rest of the game. You just kind of need to be a programmer.
Yeah.
Speaking of jokes that get driven into the ground, that I enjoy, the sheriff saying blah blah or Reno,
and the coroner saying blah blah or Rooney.
We got a little murder Reno. I don't know. He kept on saying that, and I kept on thinking it was funny.
There's kind of a fun question.
And then I quit. You're sure you want to quit Reno? I was like,
man. There's a fun question here from 4M0N80 that they like that they got stuck for the first time in a while and still are. Sorry about that. Do you think that walkthroughs and solutions in the internet era kind of made the genre more niche than it already is because you had to, just try and because the answers can all be found online?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of the things that as an adventure game designer or any, kind of narrative type designer that you really worry about, because people can just kind of do a walkthrough. But I think it's the kind of thing that you just kind of have to not worry about, right? I think if you try to make a game that is a narrative game that is walkthrough proof, I think you end up making a game that is incredibly obnoxious for people to play, because what you've done is you've just created so much randomness in things because they can't really be walked through. And we do a little bit of that. There is a little bit of randomness in this thing. There's a point where you have to go where Dolores has to find Uncle Chuck's favorite number, right? And it's a random number, right? So you can't just look at a walkthrough and type in his number. You kind of have to do the piece of the puzzle to find his number. So that would have to be walked through as opposed to somebody saying, oh, Chuck's favorite number is 32. So just type that in when it asks for his favorite number. So there are little things that we do like that kind of make people have to solve the puzzle chains. But I think if you become obsessed with walkthroughs, I think it'll just drive you and your players crazy. So you just accept it.
Did Dishonored actually use that random? They used that random like mechanic, and they still like had the all the numbers be lovingly rendered in that game's font in order to, like, so that you couldn't just look it up online. You had to find whatever it was that was holding the number because of the random generation.
Right. Yeah, I think it's little things like that you can do that aren't particularly obnoxious, but still, help with the walkthrough thing. It's like if I guess my attitude about walkthroughs is, if you're going to follow a walkthrough, I want to make sure that you got the full story when you did that. That the walkthrough isn't kind of allowing you to jump over important story points because you're doing the walkthrough.
Yeah, and I guess if you force players too much to play it your way, you kind of run the risk of, going down that rabbit hole where you don't allow them to stream your game.
Right, yeah. Which, I mean, good luck preventing that, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we're streaming that next week, I think, Persona 5.
I wasn't really sure what they were thinking with that whole thing. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the second you tell somebody don't do this, they will immediately go do it.
Yeah.
There's a psychology, to that. I mean, I can see saying press, hey, you're under embargo, so don't spoil the ending or something. I mean, that seems very reasonable to me. But yeah, telling players they can't do something is an invitation to tell them to go do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm the kind of player where, like, if I start on the left side of the screen facing right, the first thing I do is go left.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in Limbo. That was the first thing I did in Limbo, right?
Yeah.
Is because the kid is facing right, and I just immediately went left to see where the barrier is.
Yeah.
You're not my mom. Yeah.
Which is the other thing, when I play games with friends and stuff, that drives them crazy. The first thing is that when the game boots up, I will spend the next 15 minutes in the UI looking at all the options and stuff. Yes.
Let's go in the
menu. I will
menu.
just spend 15 minutes in that looking at everything. And they're like, Ron, start playing. And the other thing I do is I just try to break the game. Yeah, I tried to do exactly what you were saying. I if the game is telling me to do X, I do Y. Because, and I think that's just the professional game designer in me, right? I just want to see, well, how do they handle this?
Yeah.
And I think the most brilliant game of the world is Stanley Parable, because they told me to do X and I went and did Y, and the game responded correctly to me, right? It really understood that I was trying to break it. And in that game, not only do they understand you're trying to break it, they expect you to break the game in that way. And I just thought that was like brilliant, right? I mean, it was definitely one of those moments where I just went, shit, I thought I should have thought of this.
Yeah.
It was such a brilliant idea.
Before we go, I just wanted to ask you, what the heck is up with the specks of dust?
Yes, thank you. We only have a couple minutes left. We got to talk about
the specks of dust. They're interesting. It's one of the other things I like to do when I watch streamers play the game, if they're playing it from the beginning, is they don't notice the specks of dust for maybe 5 or 6 rooms into the game, and then they notice the speck of dust, and then they become obsessed with the speck of dusts. It's just this complete OCD thing that just about everybody becomes obsessed with. And excuse me, I mean, it started as a Twitter thing because somebody on Twitter said, hey, I missed the Kickstarter, and I noticed one of your levels in the Kickstarter was, you got to name an item in the game. It said, is it too late to back the Kickstarter? And I said, yeah, it's too late. I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, can I please have an item in the game? Maybe just a little speck of dust. Can you just give me that in the game? And so jokingly, I said, okay, sure, fine. And I just kind of mocked the screenshot up, and I tweeted it back to him, and I said, okay, there's your speck of dust.
Oh my!
But then as I started playing around with it, I thought, oh, you know what? This is actually really interesting, because I could put these in every room, and it'd just be this weird little thing that you go around and collect. So that's really where the specks of dust came from. It's just kind of a Twitter thing.
Do they randomly generate, or are there like an X number to collect and you have to find them throughout the whole game?
Every room has one speck of dust in it. And so there are a finite number of them that you collect. And when Act 2 starts, you notice everybody in their notebooks says collect 57 more specks of dust.
Oh, man.
And so it keeps going down. and so you can actually go collect them all. And they do regenerate every 15 minutes. They move to a new spot in the room.
So canonically in the story, all of the characters really care about collecting specks of dust.
Yeah, they do. It's important to them.
And then you unlock the achievement
Right.
when you get all of them.
Right.
And
I like
unlock the one true ending. Yeah.
There's some review I read that said it was commentary on pixel hunting and adventure games, and I really like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was intended
there's
that way.
a little bit of that. It's like we've almost formalized it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well now there is literally a pixel that you must hunt down.
All right, we'll take one more last look at Bryant here. How's it going?
We're going into the void. We're just.
Oh, you gave her the magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
I will say that your fans have been. We have a lot of people for us today for our little modest Twitch channel, and they're all very polite.
They're great.
I got to bring it up because Weird Gamer 89 keeps on asking about physical. Please, Ron Gilbert, father of point and click games. He's talking about physical release. So.
We will have a box for the game. That was one of our Kickstarter pledges, was a box, and since we're going to make the boxes, we actually will have a box version of the game for sale. I don't know that it will end up in GameStop and stuff. I mean, if GameStop is even around by then, but I don't know. I don't know that it'll end up in stores, but you can certainly be able to order it online from us.
I've got a good collectible out for the collector's edition, just like a bag full of dust.
That's actually a good idea.
Actually, you could get like perfectly square cut out pieces of plastic or something and just put them in
stick
bag.
them in a little Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
So they're like pixel specks of dust. Yeah.
The ideas are flowing now. All right, Brian, are we ready to wrap up here?
Yeah, we can wrap up. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Frank and Ron, for chatting about Thimbleweed Park with us. If you liked watching this, we're going to have the video on demand up shortly after we're done, so we'll be putting it on Gamasutra.com, and it'll be here on the Twitch channel if you want to watch it.
Over and over. Just keep watching.
Just keep watching it. This moment in time that will never truly end. You can follow Ron and Frank on Twitter if you want to throw more questions at them. Frank has a really cool... You guys just launched a classic game archival project today, didn't you, Frank?
Yeah, so I run, like I said earlier, the Video Game History Foundation. We're a nonprofit that is trying to make sure that historians have what they need to tell the story of video games, because I think a lot of that stuff is just very ephemeral and disappearing by the day. And what we started today was an archive of media assets, of things that are actually sent to the media over the years. And I've got, a collection of good 400 plus discs that I frankly kind of stole when I was at 1UP. That we're archiving and putting together, going all the way back to '96, if I didn't already say that, of things like high resolution artwork that I doubt that the game publishers even have possession of anymore at this point, that we just feel is really important to sort of contextualize these games. So yeah, that's at gamehistory.org/something. I don't know, it's on the homepage somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you are a journalist or former journalist watching this who pack ratted this stuff for some reason, let us know.
Or if you just kept it at home from those demo disc magazines you got, I guess. So we are Gamasutra. We would if you liked this chat also, and you want to hear us talk to more designers and developers, we would super appreciate it if you would scroll down and click the follow button. Tomorrow we're going to talk with the developers from The Signal of Tolva, which is launching on Steam. That's a cool little open world shooter that we're excited to get into. So that's what we do here. We talk to developers of classic games who have new games. We talk to game developers about what games they enjoy. We're just trying to let you ask questions to them. I'm Brian Francis. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm waving, but my camera's not on, so it doesn't matter. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.